Hey Christian, you got the goods?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, perfect. Well, today on Tech Garage, we got 2 crashing cars on the dash, something to do with the crash imminent system, but no worries, we got the goods, and we have Christian, a Nissan tech, to come over to Tech Garage and give us a hand. So why don't you join us today as we diagnose this Nissan? Let's get out of here, man. Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, that's right, I got a laptop here from Nissan. Why is that? Well, compliments of Dave and our tech team. I think they took the Nissan out autocrossing. I don't know what they did, but they actually have 2 cars crashing on the dash and all kinds of warning lights blinking, out of control. Well, we hooked up our little tool down there, couldn't even pull the code, so I had to go get the big gun. We got the Nissan scan tool here, and I pulled up a C1A16. Haven't heard of that code very often, but we always wanted to do autonomous cars. You guys been asking for it, so why not? We got one in here. Now, I went and pulled this from the service manual information, radar, alignment, crash imminent sensor. When I got to about page 40, I decided I had 2 options. I can either give this to Dave to read, which he'll do a phenomenal job, or we just went over to Nissan and pulled in a big gun, man. We got Christian with us. Christian, we got a code here, that Tech Garage. We love that stuff. We want to learn about it, autonomous cars. This one here is kind of a weird code. We know it's a chassis code. We know B codes are body codes, U codes are network codes, and P codes are powertrain codes, but it has to do with that autonomous driving. Tell us about that code. What's going on?
Well, what's going on, that particular code sometimes comes up because you can have love bugs, you can have someone bump the front of their particular vehicle. And what it'll do, it'll throw that code because the car sometimes doesn't know what's happening. So it'll throw that code, and it's part of the safety system of the vehicle.
Awesome. So love bugs, sleet, snow, hail. Dave likes the Cincinnati team. Maybe somebody puts a sticker over there.
Yes, sometimes because that's a perfectly flat piece on the vehicle that people like to put their favorite sports team on the front of that car. And what'll happen is the distance sensor cannot see what's going on in front of the vehicle, so it'll also throw a light on the vehicle.
Now, distance sensor. We got this whole apparatus set up here. There's a lot to it. I mean, it could just be as easy as a regular code, but what is this actually doing?
What the sensor is doing on the vehicle, it is actually sending out signals to see how far the particular vehicle is in front of them. Matter of fact, the particular sensor that we have on this car, it'll actually see the car in front of it and the car in front of that vehicle.
And that's amazing. I mean, if you take a look at this graphic here, I mean, there's LiDAR, radar, wireless communication. There's all kinds of autonomous things going on behind the scenes that you may not know of. The sensors are hidden. This one happens to be right in the front. And when it gets knocked out of whack, like Dave and the boys, I don't know what in the world they did, but this one's a calibration. A U code would be a network code. This one's probably just a simple calibration.
Yes, this one here is just a simple calibration code.
Now walk us through the steps. There's a lot of stuff going on here. We see some lasers, we see some cool stuff going on. We probably could jury rig something, but this is the way to do it. Tell us step number 1.
Step number 1, what we want to do is we want to get our laser and we want to position it on the front of the target board to make sure it's perfectly centered with the distance sensor.
Awesome. And then I see kind of a G111, looks like a Hunter alignment machine deal, but you have a laser on it. You attach that to the wheel?
Yes, we attach that to the wheel because we want to make sure that the vehicle's tires and everything are perfectly straight on the car.
So it's all about the geometry?
Yes, all about the geometry of the vehicle.
Then I saw you put a mirror down. What was that all about?
With the mirror, when we put the mirror down, we lower that down to make sure that everything is perfectly straight with the target board and the geometry of the vehicle.
All the geometry of the vehicle set up, then what? Last step?
Last step is you hook up your scan tool and you go into recalibration on the scan tool, and after that, the code should go away.
We'll take it on a test drive, and then we'll come back and make sure all the codes are cleared. Now stick around because I'm going to show you how a simple oil change is not so simple. When we return with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by AP Laser, leading the way. Steel rubber products, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. You know, John, you can leave that Cincinnati Bengals sticker on there because I am a Cleveland Browns fan. Get that straight, will you? You know, the Germans are famous for their engineering, and some of their processes can be rather complicated too, like the oil change on this BMW. Once you figure it out, though, it's really not that hard. It's just different from other vehicles. Now, the first thing we did is we went underneath and took off the belly pan, and that was just 14 bolts, so we went around there, took that off. That revealed the engine. And then we looked for the 17mm drain plug for the engine oil, and just routine there, pop that off. While that was draining, then we located the center plug on the oil filter housing, took that off with a Torx bit, so that was a little bit unusual there. And then we removed the oil filter housing using a big 32mm wrench. Now, the first step in replacing everything is to replace the old O-ring on that oil filter housing. That was a little bit tricky, but not too bad. We replaced the cartridge and then replaced the drain plug. And then when it went back in, the OEM again calls for that Torx bit, but instead on the replacement we had a 13mm bolt, and we put it right back in there. Now on to the next step. There's a crush seal on that 17mm oil plug. That has to be replaced every time you change the oil in the BMW. We replaced that onto the drain plug, put the drain plug back on, and then we were good to go. Now, when it comes to replacing your oil, you want to make sure you get the right oil. So check your manual, or in the case of this BMW, you can look right here. It says 0W20 is what we need. So we want to get the right stuff. It's not like the old days where just any old oil would do. There are a lot of very particular oils for particular needs and engines these days. And this BMW calls for 5 liters, which is just over 5 quarts. So we will refill that with our 0W20. Once you get it refilled, of course, you're going to make sure you have the right level, and you can do that by checking the dipstick. But as I look here under the hood, I see there is no dipstick under here. But we do have a dipstick. He's inside the car. John?
Well, here's where the oil change gets a little complex. So I brought in an expert. This is Matthew Ayers, a BMW expert, and kind of hard to believe he called you a dipstick.
I think he's talking about you, John.
Yeah, he's absolutely talking about me because you're the expert. We performed an oil change. There's no dipstick out there. We have to go through here. But when I fired up the car, everything was lit up like a Christmas tree. Matthew, man, walk us through the system.
All right, so we're going to use this iDrive controller right here, and we're going to go and get through this screen, down to notifications, push it down, and you can see here you've got 2 messages up, the oil service and the tires. So what we're going to do first is go in here and come down, go down to vehicle status. And then we'll go over here.
Okay, so service required, everything's rolling through. Engine, can we reset the oil or check the oil from here?
Yes, so what we're going to do is come back over to the instrument cluster now, and we're going to hold down this button here.
All right.
The service is due here, and you can see the engine oil service.
Right.
So we're going to hold it down a second time.
Okay.
It's going to ask us now if we want to reset. We'll hold it down a third time. And now it says the reset's in progress.
Fantastic. And let's check the oil once.
All right, so to check the oil, now we're going to crank the vehicle up. Go back over here, up here to engine oil level.
Right.
And we don't have a dipstick, and this is actually how we're going to do it. So here's
Start the measurement. Bam, and it goes through it. So the car's going to do it all by itself. We're making progress, it's rolling along, but check your manufacturer's service manual or your owner's manual for your procedure. Hey, it's time to switch gears, so stick around. We'll be back with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, it's been wide open throttle up to this point, but it's time to put on the brakes, literally. This Garage Ed is all about the calipers. How do they apply the brakes? What kind of calipers do we have? How can we diagnose them? And also talk about some tools that we're going to use. Now, let's start out with calipers and what do they do? Here's a caliper right here. And what happens is the master cylinder develops some hydraulic pressure, sends it down to the caliper, and then the caliper applies the brakes. But what a lot of people don't know, it actually moves to do that. Most calipers do. And what's happening is when the piston applies, it moves over. So the inboard pad contacts the rotor and the outboard pad then comes in and squeezes it. Key is, how does it do it? Well, check this out. True Tech Garage fashion. Here's exactly how it does it. The piston has fluid behind here, it moves out, it pushes, and the cool thing is the only thing that retracts that piston is this tiny little square cut seal. Well, what do you mean? The deformation of that square cut seal. So when it goes out, it deforms the seal, and then when it pulls it back, the rubber actually comes back to shape and pulls it back. Now that's why it's so important to do a visual, to do a good brake job, and lube the caliper slides. How do you do that? Well, of course we're going to show you. This is Tech Garage. Here's our caliper, and this is called a moving caliper. There's two types. There's a floating and there's a sliding. This one is a floating. Why? Well, if I pull this up right here, it floats on these pins. So what do I want to know about these pins? Clean them off, get them in good shape, take you some brake lube, make sure it's brake lube them up real good, make sure you get nothing on the pads, and make sure these pins are allowed to move. Why? Well, the square cut seal pulls it back. When the inboard pad contacts, it moves in and it moves out. If it's not moving in and out, you're going to wear out those pads prematurely, not worth it. Now this one here is a sliding caliper. What's a sliding caliper? Well, instead of floating on pins, it slides on these little guides right here. And when it slides back and forth, once again, it moves. Inboard contacts, outboard CAD comes in and makes contact. It's a moving caliper. So once again, brake lube these slides, make sure it's moving, clean them up really, really well. The only thing pulling it back, the little square cut seal. You may have a fixed caliper. Now a fixed caliper is fixed. It does not move. So in this case, just be careful with the banjo bolts. It goes through here and fluid transfers to both sides. You have pistons on both sides. So this one's pretty cool. A lot of high performance cars, you just apply the brakes, boom, comes out and squeezes it. So this one here, just make sure it's clean, make sure the pistons move, and you're good to go with this one. Now Rock Auto also has some cool tools. Cool tools like this one right here. I got this off their website, rockauto.com, and this is really neat because you can just put it in between the pistons and wind it out. When you wind it out, you're pushing the piston back, makes it super easy to do a brake job. Also found this one right here. This tool is cool as well. You put it right here, inside of the caliper, put your old pad back on, twist it in, and you move it back. I know everybody grabs the big pliers and wrenches it, or a screwdriver and pulls it back. Hey, it works, but today some of these calipers are aluminum, lightweight, some phenolic pistons in there. You probably want to do it right. No problem, inexpensive tools, rockauto.com, you can do it right every time. Now Dave's got a couple of tricks over there for us as well, and he's actually lubing the slides on our Challenger. Let's check in with him.
John, it's critical that your brake caliper moves, otherwise you're going to get premature pad wear. So I'm going to show you something that's just a little ounce of prevention, and you're going to be really glad that you took this measure before things got really ugly on you. Now, the brake caliper is held on here by two bolts. This is a floating caliper, so we have two slides. So we've got the bottom bolt out, taking the top one out already, and this is connected to the brake hose behind the caliper, and you do not want to let this hang from the brake hose. It will pull the connections apart and you'll be in a world of hurt. One thing you can do is you can take a bungee cord, you can string it up from the A-arms and just let it hang there and take the pressure off of the brake hose, but in our case we're actually able to set it up here on top of the disc, so that'll be secure there. Now, again, there are two slides here. I'm going to show you how to do this on one of them, and you just pull the slide back out where the bolt was and take a look at it. Again, we did a brake job on this vehicle last season, so this is in pretty good shape, but you'll probably have rust on here. You'll probably have some debris and everything, so you want to grab a wire wheel or a wire brush, and you can actually just scrub the debris off on there until it looks something like this. When you get to that point, get your brake clean, because that's good for cleaning everything. And we will get some of the gunk off of there. I probably used too much, but that's all right. And now we'll grab some of our brake part lubricant here. Now there's no real voodoo to this. You just slather it on, and wearing gloves is advisable here because this stuff kind of gets everywhere. It makes cleanup a lot easier when you're done. And we'll just rub it on there and make sure we get it all even, and do the same thing on the bottom one, and it is as simple as that. Now to put these back on, you just reverse the procedure. So you put the slides in first, put the caliper back on, put your bolts on. Don't forget your torque specs. You want to check the manufacturer's specifications to make sure you have those on exactly right. Otherwise, you're going to run into big problems down the road. Well, don't go anywhere, because the next segment is going to be electrifying. When we come back, it's all about batteries. Keep it right here on Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radios since 1977. Magic Creeper, the most versatile creeper ever. and by rockauto.com. All the parts your car will ever need.
All right, I got the maintainer, the battery maintainer hooked up to my son's motorcycle so he can ride. And thank you for riding along with us on Tech Garage, brought to you by rockauto.com. Well, what better to talk about than batteries on this week's Master Technician Tech Tip, hashtag MTTT. It's all about the batteries. What does a battery do? Well, it supplies all the electrical power when the car's not running. And unfortunately today, well, the cars are riddled with electronics and the battery kind of has to take over the load for the alternator when it can't keep up. So they get beat up quite a bit. I want to show you what's going on. There's different configurations of batteries. There's different types of batteries. This one's a lead acid. rockauto.com, they got AGM batteries. They got some top-notch batteries, so we don't have that problem. But check this one out. You got top post right here, or you got side post batteries. That's the basics. But if you look inside here, this is really cool. It's cut away. So what you have in there is you have a bunch of plates covered with some materials. It's pretty complicated, brown and gray sponge lead, and through a chemical reaction with the sulfuric acid and water, well, that makes pressure, electronic pressure. But when it does that, as the battery starts to go dead, these plates, they start flaking away. Well, what happens then? Take a look at this right here. You see all this inside of here? This is where the plates all deteriorated and started to flake away. Not a good thing. When that starts to flake away, and if your battery's not held down real good, well, all that ends up in the bottom of the case. And positive and negative plates can't touch. So once they start touching, your battery starts shorting out. So what do we do? Well, here's a couple of tech tips for you. You can check what's called open circuit voltage, OCV. Super easy to do. Just take any voltmeter and go across the terminals from the positive to the negative. Nothing on, just OCV, open circuit voltage right there. And you can see this one's around 12.6. That's great. But here's what's actually stunning. This is crazy. Take a look at this chart right here. You would think that a dead battery would be about 6 volts, wouldn't you? Well, that's not the case. Look at a fully charged, it's 12.65. 50% charged is 12.24, and a zero dead battery really can't put out any cold cranking amps. Man, that's 11.89. So it doesn't take much to kill a battery. So what do you want to do? Here's another tech tip for you. You can actually check voltage drop. Now, voltage drop is pretty cool. You can go right across the terminal here, the two top terminals. So I'm going to go across the battery and I'm going to go across the cable right there. Then you're going to have somebody crank up the car, and when they're cranking up the car, you're going to look down at the meter. You don't want anything more than 0.5 of a volt voltage drop, or you got a loose connection. You need to track that down. A couple other tips for you. If you're messing with the battery, you can go to rockauto.com, get all these tools. You can go ahead and get a cleaner right here. This is pretty cool because you can take the cable off and you can clean the top post of the battery, and right on the other side, I can get inside there and clean the inside out. So I can make sure I don't have any voltage drops or problems with that. Now, you've probably done this a time or two. You carry a battery, you're dragging it along the side of your pants, you go put it in the car, wonderful, everything's great. Wash your laundry, come out, there's these little holes in the side of your pants. What's going on? Well, some of that lead acid got onto your pants and boom, your wife's chewing you out because you got holes in your pants. Well, no more. rockauto.com, voila. Battery holder, pick it up, squeezes the battery, tote it around with ease. That's the easy part. Now, how are you going to prevent from that flaking? It's really good to get a trickle charger on your car, and we happen to have a problem with our Lincoln right here at Tech Garage. Josh, what's our problem?
That problem is leaving me drained. Talking about batteries.
Good one.
Drained. Well, I'm tired of jumping off this Lincoln. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up this trickle charger, but I'm going to use the special terminal here.
Right.
Because I'm tired of hooking up these types of terminals that keep popping off. So if you'll let me have those, I'll be on my way and I'll make a permanent fix for our Lincoln.
Yeah, there you go, and that's what's happening. So, you know, it sits a lot, it's not running a lot, and, you know, teaching at a school, it's the greatest job in the world. You got some summers off, so it sits there. It's a good idea to keep it trickle charged. Why? So it's not discharging and recharging, discharging and recharging. And, you know, Josh is going to make easy work out of installing this battery maintainer. All he has to do is disconnect the battery, remove the lugs from the battery, and then he's going to go ahead and put on that pigtail that he made. That'll connect directly to the leads, put the battery terminals back on, secure them to the battery, and then he's going to route the leads down. He'll tuck them down in the car for now, but eventually we'll route them out to the front of the car so we don't even have to open the hood, man. And that's going to take care of that excessive parasitic draw. Speaking of parasitic draws, let's check in with Dave.
Thanks a lot, John. Takes one to know one. Tom, you know, batteries a few years ago, you guys couldn't ship these, but with the advent of the AGM, now you're using a gel instead of lead acid, and it's possible for you to ship batteries, which means you have a ton of variety of batteries on rockauto.com.
Yep, yeah, listed under specific vehicles in the catalog, you'll find the correct batteries, different choices of brands, cold cranking amps for your particular vehicle. Then we also have tools to keep your battery maintained, battery chargers under tools and universal parts. With these new cars, they're always drawing a little bit of current, the different computers and car alarms and stuff. So if it's going to sit for more than a week, it's a good idea to keep a battery charger on it so you keep it fresh and don't have your battery go dead.
And again, a huge variety of chargers. There's lots of different ways to hook them up as well, and you guys cover that at Rock Auto.
Yeah, we have different 12 volt, 6 volt, if you have an antique car, chargers, chargers with outputs specifically for the absorbed glass mat batteries. And you can leave it hooked up in your garage. We have, most of them come with little pigtails you can leave connected to the battery, and just a little pigtail hanging out underneath the edge of the hood, so you don't need to open your hood every time. If your car's sitting outside, we have the solar chargers.
Oh, that's great.
So you can just have it on your dash, charging up in the sunshine.
The variety is amazing, and when it comes to parts or tools, Rock Auto has all the parts your car will ever need, John.
Boy, my daughter's gonna be so happy. Not only did she get her oil changed, we fixed all those crazy lights on the dash. Dave, great job. BMW's in tip-top shape.
Thank you, sir, and you owe me 30 bucks for the oil change.
I'll tell you what, the production crew bought lunch, so it's on me. It's in the room over there.
Deal.
We're out of time for today, but from our crew here at Tech Garage to your crew at home, have a great week. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Production assistance for Tech Garage is provided by Chewalla College, located in Marianna, Florida. Founded in 1947, Chewalla was ranked recently as one of the top 3 community colleges in the United States.